The distant wail of a police siren jolted me awake, my heart pounding in the dimly lit bedroom. I instinctively reached across the bed, only to find the other side cold and empty. Memories of last night's argument with Eric flooded back, leaving a bitter taste in my mouth. Rubbing my eyes, I glanced at the nightstand and froze. A plain white envelope propped against the lamp caught my attention. With trembling hands, I tore it open to find a note scribbled in my mother's handwriting. "Marla, we've decided to move on and start fresh. Don't try to find us. It's better this way." Those words hit me like a ton of bricks, the air seemingly sucked out of the room. Start fresh? Without me? What about Luke? Panic gripped me as I scrambled to find my phone, dialing my parents' number frantically. No answer. I tried Eli's number, straight to voicemail. Clara's phone went unanswered too. My mind raced, trying to make sense of this sudden abandonment. Had I done something wrong? Was this because of the fight with Eric last night? Questions swirled relentlessly, but no answers presented themselves. Stumbling out of bed, I made my way to Luke's room, my heart sinking further at the sight of his empty crib. They wouldn't. Desperate, I searched every room, clinging to the hope that this was some cruel prank. But the truth became undeniable. They were gone, taking my son with them, leaving me alone in this big, empty house. Sinking to the floor, I cradled the note, hot tears streaming down my face. How could they do this to me, to Luke? Didn't I deserve better than a cold, impersonal goodbye? Memories of my childhood resurfaced, moments when I felt overlooked and insignificant compared to the golden children, Eli and Clara. Eli with his charming ways and academic achievements basking in our parents' pride. Clara, the obedient daughter who could do no wrong. And me, the forgotten middle child, too rebellious, too questioning for their liking. But this, abandoning me like this, taking my son away without a word, it felt like a cruel betrayal, a slap in the face from the very people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. As the sun peeked through the curtains, its warmth offering little comfort, I knew one thing for certain. I would find them, and they would answer for this injustice. If they thought a measly note could erase years of neglect and favoritism, they were sorely mistaken. This was just the beginning. In the days that followed, I found myself sinking deeper into a pit of despair. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, now echoed with a deafening silence that chilled me to the bone. Every corner, every room held memories of a life that no longer existed. I tried to distract myself, throwing myself into work, but even that offered little solace. The pitying looks from colleagues only served as reminders of my newfound solitude. Evenings were the worst, the emptiness creeping in like an unwelcome guest, taunting me with visions of happier times. Desperate for answers, I pored over old family albums, searching for clues that might explain my parents' inexplicable actions. As I flipped through the pages, a disturbing pattern emerged. A stark contrast between the beaming faces of Eli and Clara and my own sullen expression, often cropped or relegated to the background. It was as if I had been an afterthought, a mere bystander in my own family's narrative. Achievements that should have been celebrated were met with indifference, while Eli's every success was lauded as a triumph of parenthood. "Look at our brilliant son," my father would proclaim, his chest puffed with pride. "He's going to make us proud." And Clara, the ever-obedient daughter, could do no wrong in my mother's eyes. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" she'd chide me. "So well-behaved and focused." Focused on what, exactly? Pleasing everyone but herself? I had always been the one to question, to challenge the status quo, and for that I was labeled the rebellious one, the black sheep of the family. One particularly vivid memory resurfaced, a Thanksgiving dinner from my teenage years. Eli had just been accepted into an Ivy League school, and the evening was a celebration of his achievement. As the family raised their glasses in toast, my father turned to me, his eyes cold and devoid of warmth. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" he sneered. "Maybe then we'd have something to be proud of." Those words cut deeper than any blade, leaving an invisible scar that never fully healed. In that moment, I knew I would never be enough in their eyes, no matter how hard I tried. As I slammed the album shut, anger coursed through my veins. All those years of neglect, of being made to feel inferior, had culminated in this ultimate betrayal. They had discarded me like a piece of unwanted baggage, whisking away my son without a second thought. A newfound determination took root, a burning desire to confront them, to make them answer for their cruelty. They would not get away with this, not while I still breathed. I would find them, and they would face the consequences of their actions, no matter the cost. The weeks that followed were a blur of anguish and anger. I found myself spiraling, consumed by the memories of a lifetime spent in the shadows of my so-called perfect siblings. Every slight, every dismissal played on a loop in my mind, fueling the flames of resentment. One particularly painful recollection stood out: my high school graduation. As I crossed the stage, diploma in hand, I scanned the crowd eagerly, hoping to catch a glimpse of pride on my parents' faces. But their eyes were fixed on Eli, who had just been awarded a prestigious scholarship. "That's my son," my father beamed, slapping Eli on the back. "He's going to make us all proud." My mother chimed in, "Yes, our brilliant boy. We're so fortunate to have him." Their words cut like knives, leaving me hollowed and invisible, even on what should have been my day to shine. Later that evening, as we celebrated with a family dinner, the conversation revolved solely around Eli's accomplishments and future plans. I tried to interject, to share my own hopes and dreams, but my voice was quickly drowned out by my mother's gushing praises for my overachieving brother. "Marla, dear, don't you wish you could be more like your brother?" she said, her tone laced with condescension. "He's going to do such great things." The implication was clear: I would never measure up, no matter what I achieved. In their eyes, I was already a lost cause, a disappointment. As the evening wore on, I retreated to the safety of my room, my diploma clutched tightly in my hands. Tears streamed down my face as I stared at the once cherished piece of paper, now a cruel reminder of my insignificance. "Why bother even trying?" I whispered to myself. "They'll never see me, not really." In that moment, a part of me withered, replaced by a simmering resentment that would only grow stronger with each passing year. Even after I had Luke, my own child, my parents' favoritism persisted. While they doted on their grandchildren from Eli and Clara, showering them with love and attention, Luke was often an afterthought, a mere obligation. "He's such a fussy baby," my mother would remark, her nose wrinkled in disdain. "Are you sure you're doing everything right?" The implication was clear. I was a failure, even as a mother. As these memories resurfaced, I found myself consumed by a burning rage, a desire for vengeance that threatened to consume me whole. They had taken everything from me, my family, my son, my sense of self-worth, and for what? Because I didn't fit their mold of perfection? Well, no more. I would make them see me, even if it was the last thing I did. They would pay for their cruelty, for the years of emotional torture they had inflicted. And this time, they would be the ones left in the shadows, forgotten and insignificant. With a newfound determination, I began to formulate a plan, a way to make them truly understand the depth of their betrayal. Revenge would be mine, and it would be sweet. Just when I thought I had hit rock bottom, a glimmer of hope appeared in the form of my estranged Uncle Jack. I hadn't seen or spoken to him in years, not since the falling out he had with my parents over some long-forgotten slight. The doorbell rang one dreary afternoon, jolting me from my self-imposed misery. I shuffled to the door, half expecting it to be another debt collector or someone peddling unwanted wares. But when I opened it, there stood Jack, a somber expression etched onto his weathered face. "Marla," he said, his voice thick with concern, "I heard what happened." Before I could respond, he pulled me into a tight embrace, and something within me broke. The floodgates opened, and I sobbed uncontrollably into his shoulder, all the pain and anguish I had bottled up spilling forth. Jack ushered me inside, his strong, calloused hands guiding me to the couch. He listened patiently as I poured out the sordid tale of my family's betrayal, his eyes flickering with a mixture of sadness and rage. "Those bastards," he muttered, shaking his head. "I always knew they were twisted, but this is a new low." For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of validation, of being truly seen and understood. Jack had always been the outsider, the one who refused to buy into my parents' illusion of perfection. "You don't deserve this, kiddo," he said, his voice laced with conviction. "You're worth 1,000 of them, and it's about time someone showed you that." In that moment, Jack became my lifeline, offering me a safe haven away from the suffocating loneliness of the house. He insisted I stay with him, at least until I could get back on my feet. No arguments, he stated firmly when I tried to protest. You need someone in your corner, and I'll be damned if I let those vultures pick over what's left of you. And so, with a heavy heart and a single duffel bag of belongings, I said goodbye to the home that had once been my sanctuary, now tainted by the ghosts of happier times. Jack's modest apartment became my refuge, a place where I could start to piece together the shattered fragments of my life. Over the following weeks, he became my rock, offering unwavering support and guidance as I navigated the turbulent waters of single motherhood and abandonment. He listened without judgment as I shared my deepest fears and insecurities, the wounds inflicted by years of parental neglect. You've got a strength in you, kid, he'd say, his eyes alight with pride. A fire that those fools could never extinguish, no matter how hard they tried. Slowly, with Jack's encouragement, I began to rebuild. I enrolled in night classes, determined to finish the degree I had abandoned years earlier. And as the pieces of my life started to fall into place, a new sense of purpose took root. A burning desire to not just survive, but to thrive, to rise like a phoenix from the ashes of my past. My revenge would come, not through petty vengeance, but through success, a resounding triumph over the doubts and limitations that had been imposed upon me for far too long. And when the time was right, when I had climbed to the heights they never thought possible, I would confront them, and they would be forced to reckon with the woman I had become. Strong, resilient, and unapologetic. The following months were a whirlwind of determination and hard work. With Jack's unwavering support, I threw myself into my studies, determined to make up for lost time. The late nights spent poring over textbooks and cramming for exams became a welcome distraction from the lingering ache of my family's betrayal. You've got this, kiddo, Jack would say, sliding a fresh cup of coffee across the table as I buried myself in research papers. Show those bastards what you're really made of. His words fueled me, igniting a fire within that refused to be extinguished. I was no longer the overlooked, underestimated middle child. I was a force to be reckoned with, and I would stop at nothing to prove my worth. As the semesters flew by, my grades soared, and I found myself drawn to the world of entrepreneurship. The idea of building something from the ground up, of carving my own path, resonated deeply within me. It was a chance to shed the shackles of my past and forge a new identity, one defined by my own ambitions and achievements. I want to start my own business, I confided in Jack one evening, my eyes alight with determination. Something that's truly mine, something they can't take away from me. Jack's face broke into a wide grin, and he clapped me on the shoulder. That's my girl, he said, pride evident in his voice. You've got the fire, the drive. Now it's time to show the world what you're capable of. With his encouragement, I began to flesh out my ideas, poring over market research and drafting business plans late into the night. The concept was simple, yet innovative, a service that would revolutionize the way people approached personal finance and wealth management. As graduation loomed, I found myself standing before Jack, diploma in hand, a triumphant smile etched across my face. This time, there were no shadows to lurk in, no overbearing expectations to weigh me down. This achievement was mine and mine alone. I knew you had it in you, Jack said, pulling me into a fierce hug. Now it's time to take on the world. And take it on I did. With Jack's financial backing and unwavering belief in me, I launched my fledgling business, pouring every ounce of my being into making it a success. The long hours and countless sacrifices were a small price to pay for the chance to forge my own destiny. As the months ticked by, my hard work began to pay off. Word of my innovative approach spread like wildfire, and soon clients were beating down my door. With each success, each milestone reached, I felt a sense of vindication, a silent victory over those who had doubted and dismissed me. But beneath the surface, a burning desire for retribution simmered, fueled by the memories of a childhood spent in the shadows. I knew deep down that true fulfillment would only come when I had faced my demons head-on, when I had made my family confront the consequences of their actions. And as my empire grew, as the accolades and media attention poured in, I knew that day was fast approaching. They would soon see the woman they had so callously cast aside, the phoenix that had risen from the ashes of their cruelty. And when they did, They would have no choice but to bow before the force of my resilience and determination. Revenge was no longer a fleeting desire. It was an inevitability, a reckoning that would shake the very foundations of the life they had built on lies and favoritism. And I, Marla, the once forgotten daughter, would be the architect of their undoing. The years that followed were a whirlwind of success and validation. My business took off like a rocket, quickly becoming the go-to solution for financial planning and wealth management. Clients flocked to my innovative approach, drawn to the fresh perspective and personalized service I offered. As the accolades and media attention poured in, I found myself basking in the spotlight, a far cry from the shadows I had once inhabited within my own family. Each award, each glowing review, felt like a triumph over the doubts and limitations that had been imposed upon me for so long. "This is just the beginning, kiddo," Jack would say, beaming with pride as we celebrated another milestone. "You're showing those fools what they missed out on." And indeed, with each passing year, my success seemed to grow exponentially. My name became synonymous with excellence, my methods lauded as revolutionary. I was living, breathing proof that perseverance and determination could overcome even the most daunting obstacles. Yet, beneath the surface, a part of me remained unsettled, a hunger for retribution that could not be sated by professional accomplishments alone. As my empire expanded, so too did the nagging desire to confront the demons of my past, to make my family reckon with the consequences of their actions. It was during one of my many media interviews that the opportunity presented itself. The reporter, a seasoned veteran known for her hard-hitting questions, couldn't resist delving into my personal life. "Your success is truly remarkable," she said, her piercing gaze fixed upon me. "But what drives you, Miss Johnson? What fuels this insatiable ambition?" For a moment I considered deflecting, offering up the usual platitudes about hard work and dedication, but something within me snapped, and the floodgates opened. "Revenge," I stated, my voice steady and unwavering. "A burning desire to prove wrong those who doubted me, who tried to break me." The reporter's eyes widened, and she leaned forward, sensing a juicy story. "Care to elaborate?" And so I did. I laid bare the sordid tale of my childhood, the years spent in the shadows of my perfect siblings, the emotional neglect and manipulation that had left indelible scars. I spoke of the ultimate betrayal, the cold goodbye that had torn my life asunder and set me on this relentless path to success. As the words tumbled out raw and unfiltered, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The carefully constructed facade I had built, the mask of composed professionalism, crumbled away, revealing the raw, wounded soul beneath. The interview was a sensation, my candid revelations sparking a media frenzy. Overnight, I became the subject of intense scrutiny, my personal life dissected and analyzed by the masses. And then, like moths drawn to a flame, they emerged from the shadows. My estranged family, their once pristine image now tarnished by the harsh light of truth. It started with a tentative phone call from Clara, her voice trembling with a mixture of shame and desperation. "Marla," she pleaded, "we need to talk. They're not what they seem." I could sense the vulnerability in her words, the cracks beginning to show in the facade of perfection they had so carefully cultivated. "Talk," I scoffed. "About what, dear sister? About how you stood by and watched as our parents played favorites? As they systematically crushed my spirit and self-worth?" The line went silent, and I knew I had struck a nerve. But Clara was merely the opening salvo. Soon the calls and messages came pouring in, each one more desperate than the last. My parents, their once lofty pedestals crumbling beneath the weight of their own lies and manipulation, begged for a chance to explain, to make amends. And in that moment I realized the true depths of my revenge. It wasn't simply about success or triumph. It was about stripping away the illusion they had clung to for so long, laying bare the ugly truth for all to see. With a newfound sense of power, I agreed to meet them, to hear their explanations and excuses. But deep down, I knew that no apology, no justification could ever undo the damage they had wrought. They had sown the seeds of their own destruction, and now they would reap the bitter harvest of their actions. And I, the once forgotten daughter, would be the one to deliver the final blow, the reckoning they had so long avoided. The day of the long-awaited reunion dawned, and I found myself a bundle of mixed emotions: anger, anticipation, and a strange sense of power. After years of being the overlooked, underestimated daughter, the tables had turned, and now they were the ones seeking my approval, my mercy. I had chosen the location carefully. A sleek, upscale restaurant in the heart of the city, a far cry from the cozy, familiar diners of our childhood. This was my domain, my territory, and they would be forced to play by my rules. As I strode through the doors, heads turned, whispers rippling through the hushed murmurs of the patrons. My name, once a mere afterthought, now carried weight, commanding respect and attention. And there they were, huddled at a corner table like errant children summoned before the principal. My parents, their once proud demeanors diminished, their eyes downcast and ashamed. Eli, the golden child, his once charming veneer cracked and worn. And Clara, her mask of perfection slipping, revealing the insecurities that had long festered beneath. "Marla," my mother croaked, her voice trembling, "we're so glad you agreed to meet with us." I said nothing, simply sliding into the empty chair and fixing them with an icy stare. Let them squirm, let them feel the weight of their transgressions bearing down upon them. "We owe you an apology," my father chimed in, his words hollow and rehearsed. "We've made mistakes, terrible mistakes, and you suffered because of them." Eli nodded vigorously, his eyes pleading for forgiveness. "We never meant to make you feel lesser, sis. You have to believe that." I wanted to scream, to hurl the catalog of grievances I had compiled over the years directly in their faces. But I remained silent, allowing the tension to build, the discomfort to fester. It was Clara who finally broke, her carefully constructed facade crumbling as tears streamed down her face. "Please, Marla," she sobbed. "We need your help. We've lost everything, the business, the money, everything. You're our only hope." Ah, there it was, the true reason for this little charade, the desperation that had driven them to seek me out after all these years. Not genuine remorse or a desire to make amends, but the cold, harsh reality of their own failings. A bitter laugh escaped my lips, and I shook my head slowly, savoring the moment. "Help?" I echoed, my voice dripping with contempt. "After everything you've put me through, you have the audacity to ask for my help?" Their faces fell, the weight of their mistakes finally settling upon them like a oppressive shroud. "But you're our daughter," my mother stammered, grasping at straws. "Our flesh and blood. Surely you can find it in your heart to forgive us." Forgive them after years of emotional neglect, of being made to feel like an afterthought in my own family? The very notion was laughable. "Forgiveness?" I spat, leaning forward, my eyes blazing with barely contained fury. "You want forgiveness? Then you'll have to earn it, on my terms." The words hung in the air, heavy and loaded with implications. They knew, deep down, that this wasn't a simple request for aid. It was a reckoning, a chance for them to atone for the sins of the past. "Anything," Eli pleaded, his once proud demeanor reduced to shameful groveling. "Just name your price." A cruel smile twisted my lips as I surveyed their pathetic, broken forms. The power, the control, was intoxicating, a heady brew of vindication and retribution. "Family counseling," I stated, my voice firm and unyielding. "All of us together, laying bare the ugly truths we've been carrying for far too long. And not just a few sessions, but a true, deep dive into the dysfunctional cesspool that spawned our so-called family." Their faces registered a mixture of shock and horror, but I pressed on, relentless. "And that's just the beginning. If you want my help, if you want a chance at redemption, you'll have to confront the demons you've been running from for years. Every slight, every betrayal, every ounce of pain you've inflicted upon me, it all comes to light. No more secrets, no more lies." The weight of my demands settled upon them, crushing and inescapable. This was their penance, their opportunity to bare their souls and face the consequences of their actions. "Well," I challenged, arching an eyebrow, "what's it going to be? Freedom from the past, or a lifetime of regrets?" In that moment, they knew. The tables had turned, and I held all the cards. Their once perfect family, the veneer of success and unity, had crumbled to dust. And I, the forgotten daughter, had risen from the ashes, a phoenix reborn, ready to burn away the lies and deceit that had poisoned us for far too long. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of confrontation and raw emotion. True to my demands, we began family counseling sessions, intense, no-holds-barred explorations into the twisted dynamics that had fractured us for so long. Let's start at the beginning, the therapist said. Her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the palpable tension in the room. Marla, share with us your earliest memories of feeling overlooked or neglected. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the onslaught of painful recollections that threatened to spill forth. Beside me, my parents shifted uncomfortably, their faces etched with apprehension. I was 7 years old, I began, my voice thick with barely contained emotion. It was my birthday, and all I wanted was for my parents to be there, to make me feel special, just for one day. The memories came flooding back, raw and vivid. But instead, they were fawning over Ely, praising him for some academic achievement or another. I remember sitting alone in the living room, clutching my teddy bear, listening to the sounds of celebration from the other room. My mother opened her mouth to protest, but the therapist silenced her with a raised hand. "Let her speak," she said, her tone firm yet compassionate. And speak I did, unleashing a torrent of pent-up grievances and resentments that had festered for decades. Each memory, each slight, laid bare for all to witness. The time Clara received a lavish quinceañera while my 16th birthday went unacknowledged. The countless school plays and recitals where my parents' seats remained empty, their attention focused elsewhere. As the words tumbled out, I could see the impact they had, like daggers piercing the delusions my family had clung to for so long. Eli's confident facade cracked, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. Clara, once the perfect daughter, dissolved into quiet sobs, her mask of composure shattered. And my parents? Their reactions were perhaps the most visceral of all. Gone was the smug indifference, the dismissive attitudes that had once been their armor. In its place, a raw, naked vulnerability, a dawning realization of the damage they had wrought. We never meant to make you feel that way," my father stammered, his voice hoarse with emotion. "We were just so focused on their successes, we lost sight of everything else." My mother nodded, her eyes downcast with shame. "We failed you, Marla. We failed as parents, and there's no excuse for that." In that moment, I felt a strange sense of vindication, a twisted form of justice. For years, they had brushed aside my feelings, my very existence, in pursuit of their idea of perfection. But now, confronted with the harsh reality of their actions, they had no choice but to face the consequences. The sessions continued, each one peeling back another layer of the toxic familial onion. Resentments were aired, old wounds reopened, and through it all, a strange sense of catharsis began to take hold. But even as the healing process began, a part of me remained guarded, wary of their intentions. Were they truly committed to change, or was this simply a last-ditch effort to regain my favor, to secure the financial assistance they so desperately craved? The answer came during one particularly heated session, when the therapist broached the subject of their ultimate betrayal, the cold, impersonal goodbye that had shattered my world. "Why did you do it?" I demanded, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. "Why did you take my son away from me, without a word, without any explanation?" For a moment they were silent, their eyes downcast, ashamed. Then, in a move that surprised us all, Eli spoke up, his voice thick with remorse. "It was my idea," he confessed, his shoulders slumped in defeat. "I was the one who convinced Mom and Dad to cut ties, to start over without the baggage of the past." The revelation hung in the air like a lead weight, suffocating and damning. "You," I whispered, my hands curling into fists, "you took my child from me, my own flesh and blood, because he was baggage?" Eli flinched, his body recoiling from the venom in my words. "I was selfish," he admitted, his voice barely audible. "I wanted a clean slate, a chance to rebuild our family's legacy without the distractions of the past." In that moment, the floodgates burst open, and a torrent of rage and anguish poured forth. I hurled every insult, every curse at their trembling forms, my vision blurred by tears of fury. The session descended into chaos, the therapist's attempts to regain control drowned out by the force of my emotional maelstrom. And as the dust settled, a sobering realization took hold. There was no redemption to be found here, no path to forgiveness or reconciliation. They had crossed a line, a boundary that could never be uncrossed. And in that moment, I knew what I had to do. With a heavy heart, I turned to face the shattered remnants of my family, my eyes steeled with resolution. This is over," I declared, my voice steady and unwavering. "I gave you a chance, an opportunity to make amends, and you squandered it. Their protests fell on deaf ears as I rose to my feet, gathering my belongings. I don't need your money or your help, I continued, each word slicing through the tension like a razor-sharp blade. I've built something for myself, something real and lasting without your interference. And as I turned to leave, I couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness, a lingering ache for the family I had once longed for but could never have. Goodbye, I whispered, more to myself than to them. And this time it's for good. With those parting words, I stepped out into the world, a weight lifted from my shoulders. The shackles of the past had been severed, the cycle of toxicity broken. My revenge, in the end, was not a grand act of retribution, but a simple act of defiance. A refusal to be defined by the pain and neglect of my upbringing. I had risen from the ashes, a phoenix reborn, and I would forge my own path, one unmarred by the sins of my family. And as I looked towards the future, a newfound sense of clarity washed over me. The past could no longer hold me hostage. I was free to embrace the life I had fought so hard to build, surrounded by those who truly loved and supported me. Jack's beaming smile and the innocent laughter of my son filled my heart with a warmth I had never known, a love untainted by the baggage of dysfunction and betrayal. This was my legacy, my true family, a bond forged not by blood, but by the shared triumphs and hardships that had shaped us. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I would face them head-on, unbowed and unbroken, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. For I was Marla, the phoenix risen from the ashes, and my story was just beginning.